Sorry about the abrupt end of the last video. Something came up. But let's take a look at the fourth topic in this eighth section. The open temple of the tabernacle in the heaven. And isn't that a glorious sight? To see the tabernacle being open and being able to see a glimpse of what's happening in the temple. And it says in Revelation 15:5, after these things I looked, and behold, the temple of the tabernacle of the testimony in heaven was open. So there is no temple in the city of God. So this is a heavenly temple. As at present, the tabernacle and the temple were the two Old Testament structures and dwelling places. So when the veil of the temple was rent, in other words, when Jesus died on the cross, the veil was rent. In other words, it's torn in two from top to bottom. And this veil was so thick that no human hands or no machine or no weapon or anything could have torn that. Only the glory of God. Only God could have torn it in two. And it signified the passing of the Old Testament dispensation and the introduction of the New Covenant dispensation, meaning that no longer were we to give sacrifices of grain and on the altar or animals on the altar. Jesus was our sacrifice. So we no longer were to do these sacrifices in the temple. Now we know that from history that the Jewish people continued to do it. And if Jesus died on the cross in 30 AD, Jesus gave them 40 years of basically time to understand and have grace. 40 years of grace. But we know after the 40 years, in the year 70 AD, and this is well documented, that the Roman troops came in and destroyed the temple, melted down the walls to take the gold that was in the walls, and basically killed tens of thousands of Jewish people. So God gave them a 40-year period, grace period, but they didn't learn. And this is why if they build another temple, that temple is not for the Lord. It's basically Satan's temple, where he will come in and announce that he is the only God. So the opening of the temple in heaven signifies that this present dispensation is about to end at the close of the 3.5 years, and the new dispensation, the kingdom age, will be ushered in. Now comes the 7 bowls of wrath. It says, then one of the 4 living creatures gave to the 7 angels, remember we saw those archangels, 7 golden bowls, full of the wrath of God who lives forever and ever. The scene is an awesome, inspiring scene presented in John's eyes to us. John is writing these things. 12 times in the book of Revelation, it says, John, write these things. One time, Jesus says, do not write. So the 7 bowls, or the 7 vials, in Revelation 15:6 and 7, it says, out of the temple. So these 7 archangels that we saw, they now come out of the temple that was open to receive their specific instructions about the judgment of God, the 7 angels having the 7 plagues. The 7 present angels are about to be given the 7 last plagues, or wrath, on the earth, and the sinful people that have remained on the earth. Pure bright linen. So in their garments of priests speak of perfect righteous holiness and purity. Golden girdles on their chest. The girdle of gold speaks of divine service. And then one of the 4 living creatures called the 4 horsemen to come forth relative to the 7 seals. The 4 living ones lead the worship of heaven. one of the four living creatures gave to these seven angels the seven bowls full of wrath. So one of the living creatures, who we saw those four living creatures approach the seven angels, give the whole seven bowls of wrath of God. And now it shows the four living ones are associated with God in his judgments. The seven golden bowls full of God's wrath is no longer that in wrath of God remembers mercy. That day is ended. God's mercy is now no more to be had. Wrath and judgment are going to be poured out in its fullness. God lives forever and ever. I am the eternal God. And the final topic, the smoke of the glory of God in Revelation 15:8. Temple filled with smoke from the glory of God and from his power. The scene before us is frightening in its implication and meaning. No one was able to enter the temple until the seven plagues were completed. So this is significant of the completion of the atonement and the intercessory ministry of Jesus Christ and the saints. They are called the seven last plagues, the seven bowls of wrath. The cup of iniquity is full, the bowls of wrath are full. God gives a cup, and when the cup is filled to its brim, God upturns it on the generation that filled it. The fullness of the reign of sin is seen here under the man of sin, whose God's wrath is poured out on the desolate, coming from Daniel 9:24. The effect of these plagues will be worldwide. They are as literal as they were in Egypt. So I want to thank everybody for watching this video. I know that it was broken up into two parts, but it's learning God's word and letting it meditate and digest it in your system, just like John had to digest the little book that he was given in Revelation 10. So God bless you, and may God keep you safe.